Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Lisa. Thank you for joining me. This is Happy Hour with Dr. Lisa. So, if you have a glass of wine like I do, see, feel free to get it because it is 5 o'clock after work. So, I hope you guys had a good day. Thank you for joining me live on Podbean, on Instagram, on Facebook. So, everywhere I can be heard. So, today we are going to talk about blog 8. So, if you are not keeping up with the blogs, make sure that you go to my blog. The website is lisaliggins.chambers.com. Make sure you are keeping up with the blog because the blogs directly correspond with this podcast. So sometimes when I talk about different children, for example, we'll touch upon child B today, you will know exactly which kid I'm talking about to you on the podcast. You can always ask me questions. I appreciate questions. You can ask me at Gmail, so kids can see ghosts at gmail.com. You can call me 765-205-1959, or you can reach me on social media. I'm on all platforms: Facebook, Quora, Instagram. I have 3 pages on Instagram, so a lot. So I'm always open to questions. You can always get on Podbean and join live asking your questions. And last but not least, you can get on Facebook or Instagram and type away because I am watching you so I can see you. So thank you for joining. So first, I want to start out with something personal. And I don't typically talk about too many things that are personal to me, but I'm going to talk about this because I think when things happen to me, I have a responsibility to speak about them to help other people. So I had a situation happen to me this week. I had some fraud happen to me. We're talking about money. And what these people want you to do is to be quiet about it. Well, I have a platform and I have all of you, and we can share these bastards' email address because they were able to get a small amount from me, which was $400. However, there are some people who are tricked by these jerks and they're getting in debt into the thousands. So that one moment when you're not paying attention, when you're not listening to your instincts, when you're not being vigilant or about your accounts, then that's when they get you. So I was really busy this week in preparation to go back to work, and I just had all the instincts, all the insight, and just didn't listen to myself. And no one close to me paid attention either. So I'm going to give you this email address, and I'm actually going to put this email address up on my website because I'm going to blast them for what they did. I have people listening to me all over the country, all over the world at this point. So when this happens to you, don't be afraid to tell other people. You also just don't report it to your police department. Call the FBI because that's what I did. Because even if they can't get you your money back, more than likely your bank can. However, the FBI will catch them. Okay. They have a fraud protection unit and they want to hear from you. So yes, I did file a police report with the FBI as well. So here's the email address. It's C as in cat, F as in Frank, O, ostrich, O as in ostrich, 233G as in girl at gmail.com. They will pretend to be your boss. They did that to me, except through the government. So some of you don't know, I'm actually a commissioner in my county. And so I have a government email, and that's how they targeted me. But it wasn't through the government email. It was through my private email. So go after them because I did. And don't let it happen to you. Okay. So that's my PSA today because I care and I don't want it to happen to all of you. Okay. So again, it's CFO2233G at gmail.com. Spread it around because I am. All righty. Moving on to a new blog. Let's talk about blog 8. Okay. Blog 8 corresponds with child B. So we've already talked about child B. I have labeled these kids alphabetically, obviously, because everything is confidential. However, I want you to be able to understand when I talk about these kids who I'm referring to. So in this case, it's child B. So do you remember, hopefully you do, a couple weeks ago, I mentioned that child B and child B's mother let me know that at some point, the angels that they see around me will show themselves to me. And so this is what happened. Let's see. I have not given this little one that I'm going to talk about now a letter because I have not talked about that case in a blog yet. But let's see. I'm on E, F, G. I believe I'm on H. So we can call this little one child H. And I will talk about this child pretty soon, closer to October. Child H came to see me for a psych eval. And remember, I talked about how when you do psych evals, you want to get a complete history about what happens with these kids. So a history means you want to tap into school history, medical history, psychiatric history that would include medications. You are gathering a lot of information to try to form a basis as to the reason that you are going to conduct a psychological evaluation. Okay. So I want you to pause that there. I want you to remember that. Okay. So probably the night before, something you'll learn about me as I write my podcast is that I'm a dreamer. I usually dream about people close to me. I've dreamed about friends who were sick or going to be. I've dreamed about my own children years before, they were born. So having a dream that's really vivid for me is not unusual. This was different though. So this is what I remember, and this is what I put into the blog. In my dream, I was walking with a very tall man. When I say tall, it doesn't take much to be taller than me. I'm only 5'4", but this, what I thought was a person, was at least, I don't know, probably like closer to 7 feet tall. At least it seemed that way in my dream. So here's a description of this thing. Walking with me, I'm on the right, he's on the left, and we're walking. It looked like it was a street that we were walking on, a blacktop. And as we were walking, I had a lot of questions. And before I get into the questions, I'm going to share with you that this thing that I was walking with had a whole lot of curly hair. So if you look at some of my pictures and you see that I have a curly afro, that's how his was, except it was a lot more. And I have a lot when it's not in a bun. But it was really big and beautiful, beautiful. Black, all black. Okay, so you picture that if you can see me, just like really big and black. And it flowed in the wind. It was a head full of very beautiful curls. And a black suit. The striking image about this thing was that it had one half of the face was red and one half was black. And I'll never forget it. So some things are solidified within my brain that strongly, even from years ago, because some of this stuff is so significant because it actually it all happened, but some stuff I don't remember, but things like this I do. And so we were walking. So if you know me personally, you know that I don't have a problem talking to anyone. As a matter of fact, today I was going to go talk to, I never knew there was a big homeless population in my area. And I was actually going to get out of the car and go over there near the police station and be Lisa. But then I heard some of my friends and family tell me, come back because you're by yourself. So I didn't. So it's not unusual for me to talk to a stranger. Okay. And so in my dream, I'm no different. I'm no different. I talk to people and things in my dreams. I can tell you I can write like 5 blogs of stuff like this about, me talking in my dreams. In this particular case, I was questioning this thing. And I said, why are you here? And it said something to the effect of, because I want to harm children. And, I'm against anyone that wants to harm people, but in general, kids. And so I remember looking and I said, well, why would you want to do something like that to children? And this thing said, it's my job. It's what I do. And so I'm kind of like, well, what do you mean it's your job? Whose job is it to harm people? I'm kind of looking at this thing like, whose job is it to harm people? And he said, it's my job. It's what Satan assigned to me. And I said, Satan, well, why don't you just, go to God and ask for forgiveness and just say, just ask for forgiveness. That's basically what my point was. And I'm looking to my left because that's where he was. And he said, I can't do that. And I said, well, why not? I mean, we can all ask for forgiveness, and keep in mind, this was a dream. And so he said, I can't ask for forgiveness. It's too late. And I said, too late? And we're still walking on this road. And so I said, too late? And he said, yes, it's too late for me. I can't ask for forgiveness. This is my job. I have to harm kids. And then I said, well, why would you do that? Don't do that to kids. Just go to God if you're already dead. Just go to God. That was my rationalization, right? If you're already dead, I mean, So he said, I can't do that. I'm already dead, and you will see me again, and I will harm the children you work with. An angel appeared in the dream. Like, if you can picture the two of us walking, and then out of nowhere, this angel came in the middle and just kind of looked at me. If you could see me, if you can't see me, I have like this mean face. Just looked at me. The mouth did not move. It was all up like mental, and stepped between me and this thing. And I was actually facing her, and this thing was behind her, kind of like she was protecting me from him. And so she said, you can't talk to demons. Okay, so now I know it's a demon, right? You can't talk to demons. And I said, I just want to know why he wants to harm kids. And she said, I said, you can't talk to demons. You need to wake yourself up. Wake yourself up. You will not talk to demons. And I woke up just like that. And I got up. When stuff like that happens, I'll wake up and I'll tell someone my dream. Because I remember just sitting on the edge of the bed thinking, what the hell was that? Right? So, Child B told me that one day I would see my angel, the one that was always behind me. Remember, all the kids always told me that there's an angel that stays on me, just like this, no matter where I go, except when I need private time, like the shower and stuff like that. And when I saw Child B, I described what I saw, the angel. And Child B said, that's her. The way that I described her was that she was very tall too. So I don't know what angels eat in heaven, but they must eat a lot of Wheaties if you're old enough to remember the Wheaties commercials, because they're very tall. And she had a lot of blonde, curly, long hair, which I just thought of something else that I need to put in the blog real quick about hair. So I just wrote it down really quickly. I'm sorry. So she had really long flowing hair, and she just swooped down, and she's supposed to protect me like that. So I was told she'll even protect me in a dream. So Child B at that point was right I saw my angel. That was her. So here's what happened after that. And this is one of the cases that actually blew me away because it's so freaking unreal. It was so unreal. I still see it when I close my eyes. Put child B to the side. I was not seeing child B when I saw child, what did I say? I was at H, I think. Okay. So we are in the interview. And I want you to picture this. Most psychologists and therapists will try to sit by the door. So again, most psychologists and therapists, if they want to protect themselves, they'll try to sit by the door. That way, if you are attacked, you can get out of the door before your clients get to you. Now, I had no reason to do that with this little baby. She was wonderful. However, I decided to sit by the door, and I do not know why that day. Okay, so my desk was an L shape, and there was a chair right by the door. So typically I don't sit at my desk when I see kids because I don't like them to really, think I'm that formal. So we'll sit on the floor. But in this case, I was sitting in the chair. The chair was black. And this little one sat in front of me in the chair. So, we're having a good time and everything, just kind of getting to know one another. And I'm, writing stuff down that I'm learning, for this child's history. And some of you ask me questions like gender and race, and sometimes I reveal it to you. And this is one of those cases where I will reveal it to you. This was a Caucasian female, about 7, 8, which, by the way, is a good age. I like for the kids to be about 7 or 8 because they've been through first grade. And so we get a good feel, what I do after first grade, for what's happening. And by then, they've probably had quite a few interventions academically to know whether or not we are dealing with a true learning disability or behavior concern or disorder. By second grade, for my personal preference, is when I like to start working with kids. And that is not always the case with every kid, because remember, we have autism and things like that. In those particular cases, they need early intervention. But in this case, she was about maybe 7, 8, another little beauty. And we were talking and talking and talking. And she shot back like that. So if you can't see me, I slouch real quick to shock you back in my chair, because that's exactly what it was like. So while I'm talking, this little girl pushed back quickly from me, like, whoa, as if she was scared of me. And it kind of shocked me because I thought, what just happened? And I said to her, well, what happened? And she said, I just saw a ghost. And I thought, crap. I got another little nebulous, and I call them nebulous children. And you can read why if you check the blog. I thought I had another nebulous child on my hand. This is unbelievable. Because remember, I said it kept happening over and over and over again. So I said to her, what did you see? And she said, it was dark. It was like what she was describing was a demon, but it was a dark angel. That's what the kids called them. And I said, what did it look like? Hand to God. She said it had a red and black face. And I said, you're kidding. Are you serious? Like, in a child way when I was talking to her. And then she said it had a red and black face and it had a lot of hair. And I don't think I put this in the blog. Maybe I did. And I'll talk in more detail about it when I actually write the book. But she said it was right here next to me. So on my right side of my face. So my face and its face right next to me. Yes. Yep. And I think she and I just stared at each other. Because remember, that's the demon that was in my dream. And so my reaction was, oh, heck no. He said he was going to harm the kids. He's not going to harm this one. So I told you I always kept a Bible in my office. And I went and I grabbed it. I grabbed my Bible and I prayed. And this little girl prayed too. And I cleansed that office. And that's what happened with that dream. Then the intake ended, after that. And here's what else happened. I'm still shocked the whole time. I have a coworker who could be listening, who I went and I talked to right after this little girl left, because imagine if you had a dream and you've never met this child. I couldn't identify that kid at the time if that kid was right in front of me because I had never met her. So there was no way. And what do I look like as a psychologist telling people about my dream? Like, oh, I meet this little girl and I had a dream about a demon last night. No, you just don't do that kind of stuff. So what I dreamt about was completely confidential. So I knew that this little girl saw what was in my dream. So when it was time for this little girl and her parent to leave, we go out in the hallway. God, I wish I could stand up and demonstrate this to you, but I'm going to try sitting down. We go out in the hallway and this little girl stops in the hallway and she looks down the hallway and then she looks down the other hallway and I'm like, crap, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. What does this child see? I know the volume keeps going in and out on Podbean, and it's because if I'm not using it or not typing anyone, my computer is trying to sleep. So I apologize, but bear with me. I'm catching it as fast as I can. She's looking down the hallway and then she looks like we had really long hallways. So the building was a square. So if you can imagine, I'm on the second floor and the hallway is pretty long. So imagine if you had a kid with you who's going, just kind of looking around like this. So I'm like, okay, honey, what do you see in the hallway? And do I need to bring my Bible? And she said angels. And I said, really? And she goes, yeah. And I said, okay, feeling a little bit of relief here. What are they doing? And she said, they're standing at the doors. And I said, why are they doing that? And what do they look like? So she said that they were standing at the doors with their hands. You guys know what it looks like, when people pray or when you pray. They're standing at the door with their eyes closed and they have their heads down and they are praying just like this. And I said, oh, I'm really feeling protected now. I said, and then she goes, before I asked her another question, she says, they're looking at you. I'm like, what are they looking at me for? Because you know how goofy I am, especially with kids, I get like really goofy. So I'm like, what are they looking at me for? So she said they were kind of, as I was coming down the hallway, they were kind of like this, looking at me. And so she said, they're just watching us. And I said, well, now, mind you, this kid's mother is there. And I said, well, what are they watching? And she was like, the kids, duh. Kind of like, don't you get it? there watching over the kids. And so I said, huh? Why? And then she said, because they're at the doors guarding the kids as you all work with them. And I said, wow. Wow. She said, they stay there. Those kids, angels come and they stay there when you guys are working with them. Now, this building was a very blessed building. I don't want to get a company name away, but it was a very blessed building. So remember I talked about buildings 1, 2, 3, and 4 had the crucifix on the doors. This one had, I can't remember the name, but I'll just say it this way. Bible scriptures were on every door. So it was a very blessed building. And so the mother has said, if angels were around, it was no surprise to her because the whole building, the whole campus, was very blessed. And I thought, this is really interesting. So there's another part to this little one. It was very beautiful. Thank you for commenting. It's very beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, because let me just give you another detail. Because if you think about this, if you imagine this, we may have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 offices on the right. Mine was one of them. In the back, there were 1, 2. And then on the other side, there were 5 offices and probably 6, maybe 5 offices on the right. And then maybe 1, 2, 3 on that back wall, 3 offices. Very beautiful building. And so if you can think about that, what is that, about 16 doors? There were angels lined up at 16 doors. So it's if you visualize what this child was telling me, you're right. It was it's a very beautiful image. Plus, we also had a painting on that my office. If you go around the square and on the left side, there was a painting of angels on that side that we walked past because we had to go out that way. And the little girl, saw the painting and she goes, that's what they look like. That's what they look like. That's what it is. That's what's at the door. That's what's at the door. And these angels in this painting. Now listen, I'm not saying all angels have blonde hair. I don't know. As far as I can remember, most of the kids describe the angels differently, but to this little girl, and remember they're little kids, that painting represented what she was seeing in the building. And so this painting, it was beautiful. I took a picture of it. If I find it, I will share it with all of you. But it had the angels coming down from the sky and they were gathering, together to do something I don't remember, but I remember this little girl going past. Once she was getting ready to leave, but sometimes the kids would get antsy, and that was my sign to just kind of walk them around the building. So a lot of the, kids that could see different ghosts would stop at that picture and go, those are the angels I see. And that's what she did. So she gets to the painting and she's like, there they are. There they are. That's what they are. They're here. That's where they are. And I'm like, that's great. We want God's angels to be here protecting us, especially if you just saw the half red, half black, demon in my office. How dare he do that? And so, we get into the staircase. Now I'm going to give you a little history about this staircase. When I started working for this company, I did not like the staircase. And I didn't know why until I met this little one. Have you ever been somewhere and you just like, man, this is just kind of creepy. Now, I've had a lot of those experiences. Hold on, I gotta write something else down. When I think of stuff to tell you guys, I actually write it down real quick so I can put it in my blog. I've been to a lot of places that were creepy. I used to sell real estate in Missouri, and boy, do I have stories about creepiness from just real estate alone. But in this building, the staircase was always creepy to me. And I used to try to go down another staircase because I didn't like this one. And I could never look up. So up the staircase was an attic. In this building, in the basement was a tornado shelter because, St. Louis gets tornadoes. So the third level was an attic, and I could never look up there. And I worked there for a long time, and I could never look up there because it was dark, for one. And it would just creep me out to the point where even when I would go down the steps, I would fly down the steps just because I didn't like it. And so this little girl, when we went in the staircase, she stopped on the landing. And I was like, I was really calm. Because even if I'm nervous, I get really calm. And I remember this day because she was looking up at that staircase, and I thought to myself, I knew it. That's what I thought. And I asked her, I said, what do you see? You see something? And she nodded her head, yes. I said, what do you see? And she said, I don't like it. And I said, what is it? The red and black demon. She didn't say demon, but you guys know it was a demon. And I was like, okay. And she said, I want to pray. I was like, okay, works for me. And then she said the angels came in the hallway and she felt better and she was able to go down the steps with her mother. And the thing was, her mother actually prayed at that moment too, because she froze. You ever seen a frightened little kid just kind of freeze and they can't move? That's what she did. And she started looking up at the ceiling like this. And she was nodding her head. She was like, I'm not going. She wouldn't go anywhere. So she felt better, after we gathered hands. And then she went down the steps and hugged me and left. Yeah. So that was pretty interesting, right? Now, fast forward throughout the years, I've never seen that demon again because I actually on my own will pray, because remember, I've always said it doesn't matter what religion you are, or even if you're an atheist, this works. And you heard it from me. This works. So over the years, I've learned to pray for myself for protection, because that dream, that was way too real. So I had to start to pray more for myself. And I had to pray more for myself because earlier in my career, I did learn, remember in my blog, from pastors that I had to protect myself. And this is a prime example of what those pastors were telling me, because I probably wasn't doing it enough. And so I started dreaming about it. And I dreamed about it. But you never expect, like, for when you dream about something like that a kid that you work with will be like, I just saw that it had a red and black face right next to you. You don't count on that. But that happened to me. And so I started to, get my husband involved, in praying, because I want to help these babies. And so if I'm going to help these babies, then what do I have to do? I have to start protecting myself. So I have not had that demon again. And besides that, I'm afraid of my angel. She might come back and whoop me or tell me what to do. But she gave me a clear warning that I couldn't talk to them. And the other thing that she mentioned that I may have neglected to put in the blog was that, a lot of people ask me questions about demons. I've talked about this a couple of times. And one of the things that she mentioned to me in that dream was that I cannot talk to them, because we cannot talk to them. They are not, she pointed her finger like this, like, you don't talk to them. We don't talk to them. You stay away from them, kind of like that. So, if you are someone listening and you have asked me, how you channel demons and how you play with Ouija boards, remember this content in this dream because she was in my face like this, kind of like, no, you don't talk to them. So keep that in mind. So this one left. This little girl left, and I actually did finish up her evaluation over the next couple of weeks, and did not work with her in therapy, but worked with her for a couple of weeks on her psychological testing. So you guys have heard of psychological testing, IQ tests, academic tests, anything that a kid needs, assessing their, behaviors, their, some worry behavior, meaning anxiety, seeing how sad they are, different measures that you use to assess what's happening to children. So that is what I did with this baby. And then I did, once it was done, and everything was scored and written up, and I gave it to, the feedback about it, if this person was diagnosed or not, all to the parents. That was it. I didn't get to work with this one in therapy because at the time I had stopped doing therapy. So there's a snapshot of this little girl. So sometimes when I think back about some of these kids, I just shake my head and I think, it is difficult when I say these things, probably for, some people to believe that they actually happened, but they did. And when people question them, I always say, I am not telling these kids stories for you to believe me. I am telling these kids stories because I promised many of them that one day I would. And I have enough knowledge now, and I'm not afraid anymore to share their stories. So it's not about making you believe. It's about helping some parents who go through these things, because there are a lot of parents whose kids are terrified at night, and have other symptoms that are starting to manifest negatively because they are actively seeing these things. So let me give you an example. What I love about this podcast is that parents are reaching out to me, and I really appreciate the trust. And I want you guys to keep in mind that there's no way I can do therapy for you. Okay. We can always refer you to specialists in your area, but that's not something that I do on this podcast. And I don't give any advice. So don't ask me about data, which some people have, because you have to go back to your practitioner to have those questions answered. But I love it when you ask me things that are happening to your child that pertains to this phenomena. So recently, meaning today, I had told this parent that I am going to talk about, this person was going to call in, and that I was going to talk about the question, because it's an interesting question. And here we go. How do I know if my kid is haunted? Well, what do you all have to say about that? Do you think kids are haunted? I do not think that kids are haunted. So this mom shared, and this is not the one. I have a big question coming that I'm going to address on my blog. This is not that one. This is actually another parent, to clarify. The bigger question I'll address on Friday. This is one who just simply asked, how do I know if my kid is haunted? I don't believe that children are haunted. Can individuals become possessed? Absolutely. And I've said plenty of times that I've seen kids who have been possessed. I like to save the conversations about possessions around October. Because people are traditionally interested in that stuff because some of the movies that come out. But what I did share with this mom, of course, I talk about prayer. Of course, I talk about demanding these things out of the home or away from their kids in prayer, in God's name. And why do I do that? You guys know by now that I've had a lot of years to deal with these children who can see ghosts. And it is what worked to rid them of the things that they can see at that moment and to give them a sense of control over the gift that they have. Okay. And so when kids are seeing ghosts, this is extremely, like I wrote on my blog last week, frightening to kids. So what you have to do is you have to teach them how to have some control. A lot of these kids grow up and they become adults and they can still see ghosts. A lot of us cannot, and I cannot. Keep that in mind. But a lot of kids grow up to be adults. Remember, child B's parents both saw ghosts. Okay. By the time they're grown, they knew how to control it. Some adults still do not know how to control it. And it's hard on them. But I have used that in order to at least teach these kids how to control, their gifts. And so you can go into a home and definitely have a child who can see everything that happens in the paranormal realm. And I've experienced that with a kid too. And actually child B was that way, could see just everything. So you move into an apartment and your kid is terribly frightened about what they see. And child B was that way, except child B started giving into, what she was seeing. So kids aren't born, with some ghost on their back. All kids are divine, but some have the veil lifted, and that's what I call it. So the way to give them some peace is to teach them how to control it. And when they do learn to control it, well, what happens? You see a decrease in their symptoms. I did. So for example, we're going to talk about child C at some point. Child C symptoms of anxiety and etc. started to decrease. That was a pattern that I started to see. Child C, for example, was no longer waking up at night afraid. Not afraid. I'm looking at the closet in front of me. Not afraid of the closet. Just different symptoms. Not afraid to wake up and have some ghost at the edge of the bed. Not afraid of something touching. Okay. There are a lot of different symptoms that these kids get as a result of this. So in my blog from last week, one of the things that I talked about is that I want you to feel what these kids felt. And I won't give the blog away because we are way far from blog 22. But if you read it, these are actual feelings that kids have told me, right? And they said, it talks to me. How many of us have encountered someone with, symptoms of mental illness that talk about things talking to them, or seeing things that no one else can see, or things tactile touching them, or smelling something, which smelling can be medical. So if someone tells you that, they need to go see their physicians about olfactory hallucinations. So when I was younger, this started me on this quest of how much of this is truly a challenge with our brains versus an ability that people have. So this experience with that little one that I talked about today actually started me on a quest to dive deeper into, is mental illness really mental illness? Or can mental illness be beyond what we see? And I am addressing that in the blog. So we will talk about that even further because that was something that I experienced a couple times as well, just being a resident or intern and going into different medical facilities and, going into various hospitals for mental illness. You see people talking to each other and, talking to stuff. And I remember I used to walk through when I was younger and I would go, what are they talking to? When you are trained to think about only mental illness, schizophrenia, it's a delusional disorder, things like that. But as I've grown in the field, I have, 20 years plus under my belt now, I start thinking about these things differently. And I start thinking back to, these little kids and how when they would come to me, the majority of them were not on medication. I have a very low rate of kids, very low. Either they were already on medication and you have to maintain that with them. But the ones who were not on medication, my percentage is very low. And I will toot my own horn on that one. And my record of parents being happy with the outcome was positive. Do you always win? No. If you get into this field, know that you are not perfect and you will not always win. With these kids, it was so hard because I was battling things that they said they can see and I couldn't see them. So it's kind of like you had this little baby in front of you and they're talking to something and you're kind of thinking, okay, is this more mental illness or these symptoms? Let me get to the bottom of it. Or is it really something there? So what do you all think? Comment on my blog, comment on social media. We'll get to the bottom of this together. I really appreciate you all tuning in to me today. Don't forget, if you have any questions, give me a call or an email. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. My dream became a reality that day. And there's more. Have a good week. Bye-bye.